Welcome to Frost Sessions, the Frost School of Music's official podcast. On this week's episode, opera stage director and professor Jeffrey Buchman leaps into the future of music with founder and creative director of Gamut Creative, Alain Lores. They talk about the process of creating mixed reality opera and their partnership with the powerhouse technology startup Magic Leap. The future of music really does start here at the U. Thank you so much for joining us today, and remember to stay tuned to Frost Sessions.
Alain, it's great to see you.
Likewise.
I'm so excited about the work we're doing now. I'll just catch everybody up. So we are in the middle of two projects using Magic Leap mixed reality technology, which the whole process of that for me is a whole new world that I'm being pulled into to find this new interesting way to tell story. And I'm so glad to have you as a partner on it.
I appreciate it, Jeffrey. No, likewise. It's always great to partner up with you and just sharing the creative ideas that we can both come up with and the technologies that come with it.
Yeah, it's been a long journey for you and I. We first met, do you remember what year it was when we did our first production?
I want to say 2012.
It was a while ago, but that was wonderful composer Carson Kievman. It was on his world premiere of Fairy Tales, Songs of the Dandelion Woman, and it was a chamber opera. Had you ever worked on an opera before?
I never have.
We threw you in the deep end.
Definitely was a new experience for me. And I mean, my background is in advertising. So going into theater was a whole new world. I had no idea what was going on. I just knew it was exciting because it was working with a completely different group of people that I later to find out that are very creative and have they have its own kind of process to be able to execute something like that.
Yeah, and that was the first production that I ever did that relied so heavily on electronic media, on that visual. We 3D mapped all of the scenery, and by we I mean you and your team, and that allowed us to just be so flexible in journeying from one place to another within the scenery without physically having to do any scenic shifts. And so I then had the opportunity as a creator, as a storyteller, to think much more fluidly than I normally would when I'm dealing with all hard physical scenery all the time. And I think especially a piece like that, which was dealing with dementia and the descent of someone like losing a little sense of reality and all of that. It was just so many places we could go visually, and I found it really invigorating and exciting, and the whole process for me was really new.
Yeah, that was an experience on its own. There is, since my background is in creative, but in the whole digital media side, I'm always trying to come up with some new creative ideas that tangle itself within the technology. So for me, it's like, yes, it's all on the computer. And, as I'm coming up with concepts or ideas, I've always wanted to see where this motion graphics animation world evolves to. So when I heard about that initial conversation of like, hey, there's an opportunity here with you to work with a theatrical experience and it requires projection mapping. I was like, beautiful. I mean, I'm very new to projection mapping, but I know that it kind of evolves itself with what the type of work that I was already doing. It's essentially having projectors and then projecting content light right through it. So that's where it gives us that kind of flexibility of doing what you just mentioned, is just changing the world, creating worlds that we wish to have, and still giving the respect of the stage, of the physical set, because there's something to be said about having real elements that make anchors it in reality, and then juxtaposing that with this digital, you know, fabric that lays over top of the surface and creates something new.
Yeah. And so to that point, up to that point, for the most part, you were dealing with creating three-dimensional objects and worlds, but within that two-dimensional world of a computer screen, is that, or TV screen? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
So
Yeah.
this was kind of the first time we took you out of that two-dimensional monitor and put you into a place with walls all around you, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's really cool. So both of us really were stepping out of, not, it wasn't our comfort zone, because it still stayed in my comfort zone. I'm sure it did for you, but we stepped out of the world that we were used to working in to just find, through this collaboration, a new way to do what we already are really good at.
Right. Yeah. I think that the scary part was like entering a world of, well, for me, it was like, okay, I don't understand the process of coming up with all the scenic moments and all the staging requirements. Like you're figuring out all the cues of every single individual, and also coordinating the lighting. So in my mind, I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're doing, so that way we can kind of like meet in the same direction. So I think that was part of the process in my mind. Like I'm receptive. I want to learn, and I want to understand what you're doing in order for us to create something special, which was it was amazing. It was
Which
awesome.
we did. I'm gonna share screen here just to reminisce a little bit and look back at what we did.
Sure.
You can see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so this was just really wonderful. Let's first just share the production team on this. So it was you and I, and the conductor on this was Mary Kaufman, and Camilla Haith did the costuming for it. Sean McClellan did the scenic design, and lighting design by Patrick Tennant. And here we're seeing the actual Dandelion Woman, Megan Bruce, and the other character in this show is the bank examiner, who is Ken Mattice. Really cool. So we had this like physical structure of the walls that really were the apartment building. That's what we grounded ourselves in, was this apartment building where actually the composer had seen a woman who he kind of modeled this story about what he believed her life must be. And so right now we're looking at an image where we totally just blew away the reality world of the apartment building and went into a place inside her mind. And this was a really beautiful piece of artistry where that tree was just developing and growing in front of us. It was quite amazing. And as I mentioned,
we had an artist help us with that one. That was Barbara Gutierrez. That she helped us
beautiful
develop.
Job.
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of my favorite effects that you guys created, was where inside her apartment we had all these objects that weren't really there: curtains, mirrors, sconces, all of that stuff. But then the way it was edged with this, I just fell in love with that look. I thought it was really amazing.
Yeah, that was. It felt very. Those glows and glimmering kind of effects. It was something that tied it nicely together.
You know, and if you look at this, it really is a sketched world on top of the physical world underneath it, and that's in a way some of what we're playing with now in the mixed reality technology is the same thing, honoring physical elements that are in the space that are real and layering animations on top of them or interacting with them.
Right.
Very cool. This was another picture. This is after the blow of the dandelion, and in the space was quite incredible when she did this. I mean, those particles were just coming right out into our face. It was really amazing.
Yeah.
It was wonderful just to be able to put anything up on those walls that we wanted to.
Yeah, here you don't get a sense of walls. It's more like an infinite space. And that's the beauty of it. It's that we can really essentially change the background to really give this sense of infinite kind of dimension. So that was beautiful
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
section.
Here's back into her reality world. Loved that. Yeah, and then once he got into all this mad sketching and reading her sketches, and kind of he went down the rabbit hole with her, and you see this bank examiner kind of come apart at the seams, and we could reflect that in the scenic world around him. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
What,
this was awesome.
what a great actor. I'll just zip through these real quick. Really wonderful. We took the that static from the TV that he had been staring at, and we just decided to just make that an
Right.
imposing presence on top of him.
You know, and that was an interesting thing because at the time when we were talking about, okay, how we're going to place the projectors, what's the challenge here when working with the small space that we were in the theater. And you just looked at me and said, let's just embrace the light on their faces. Let's just make that work. And I couldn't wrap my head around that at first, because it's like, wait a minute, we typically would like to do the projections behind them, but in the sense of the way that you choreographed everyone, and just to embrace the light on them, it actually worked very beautifully because they felt part of the same scene. So it was an interesting play there that you were able to accomplish that.
You know, I often find myself looking at these challenges and obstacles that we deal with in the theater, and I take a deep breath and I say, okay, I can just push back and fight for whatever my original image was in my mind, or I can take in what the reality is around me and see if maybe there's some interesting new opportunities that are being presented to me that I shouldn't push back on, you know? And so I
Right.
try, it's hard, you know, I don't
Right.
always do it, but I try and take a deep breath and say, well, hold on, let me think about this. Because what this becomes, if you look at that, I mean, it added such an incredible psychological layer. If you imagine him in exactly the same kind of expression he's in, but with just clarity of light on him and all this static around behind him, is a totally different world
It's a
than him feeling all of that all over him. So I just, you know, it's one of those things where you don't realize where you're going to go at the beginning of the process. You think you know where you're going to go, but you really don't. And so all of the steps of the process I love, and found the collaborations with you very fluid and easy.
cool, man.
Let me just zip through some more of these, see what it kind of memories it brings back for us, because I haven't looked at these photos since
Yeah, it's been a while.
probably the year after we did this. Yeah, this was kind of cool. It was a moment where in their minds they were flashing back to this kind of ideal 1950s TV show kind of relationship. And so that was fun, turning the space into something that had nothing to do with that apartment building world we were in. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's that original world. And more in that glow of the dandelion.
Yeah, that was a beautiful scene.
Really
And the
quite
shot.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. So that was Fairy Tales, Song of the Dandelion Woman. That was the composer, Carson Kievman, and the librettist on that is Mark Needle, along with Carson. And that was my first production with Carson. Turns out that since then, after that, I did two more world premieres of his works with him, which I always find so challenging and invigorating. And so the next one that came up was Intelligent Systems, and wow, that was a whole different kind of world, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a big challenge. It was a big
Yeah.
challenge, a
So
lot of worlds, and it was a very ambitious project to jump into.
yeah, I mean the leap that I was asking you to do from where we were on Fairy Tales to where I was hoping we could go in dealing with intelligent systems, it put a lot more demand on you, content and how many scenes we had to flesh out. It was a lot, I know.
Right, right.
How many
It was
hours do
fun.
you
We
think
learned
you
a
put in
lot.
on that?
We learned a lot, and we had a physical drone
Oh
into
yeah.
in the scene.
I'll have
That
to.
was
I have that picture. I'll have to pull up the
yeah,
drone. I've never put a drone in an opera before, but it was really cool. But how many
that was
hours do you think you and your team put in on all of that?
we must have spent yeah, easily over 140 hours between three of us. So it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work just to get the sets and scenes and the animations and the length of time. So we have to design these things out, storyboard these out prior. So, and then we have to have a real good understanding of the emotional connection between these scenes, because it's not like just we don't empty-mindedly just design stuff as we're being told to do. Because obviously the difference is like as I'm listening to what you're expressing, we have to try to understand that expression and translate it into something that will tie as a in that digital language. So it just has to connect. So then part of that is just connecting with the graphics, and the next aspect of it is the timing and the animation. That's where a lot of the labor goes too, where we're having to create animations that are cued um, to the moment in time that we're doing it, since it's a live theatrical performance. The cueing in itself is a whole other ballgame, because we have to develop assets that are loopable assets that can breathe for the length of time that it may roll over for 20 seconds or or a minute or whatnot, or be quicker. Then we have to hit a button to cue the next series of events, which has to seamlessly blend, to the next scene so that it doesn't pop, jitter, jerk. So those were challenges on our side. And what I liked about just working with us is just that you could have easily told me, hey, listen, Alain, why don't we just dip to black here? I'll play with the lights. I'll distract the moment just so that we can get our assistant to bring in the new scene, and that was kind of like an intuitive aspect of what we would have to do. But yeah, intelligent systems was a big one for us, just because there's just a lot of content, a lot of work in
Yeah, I know. And again, we were in a very small space. So both of these works are chamber operas. I'm so used to normally, I'm on maybe a 55 foot wide proscenium theater, and we're in this teeny space that I don't know, was it 15, 20 feet wide
there. Yeah,
tops,
pretty small
um,
space, yeah.
and we decided on this one to create an absolute blank surround, that gave us an empty palette to play with. And then we brought a lot of that feeling into the costumes as well. Again, in that kind of space, there's no room for rear projection. You have to project from the front, and that the actors are going to be in the projections. So where we did some of this work in fairy tales, letting the projections being on them emotionally and things like that. I think more in this piece, um, we allowed the projections to be almost part of how we expected their costumes to react to. Sometimes I put them in just absolute stark white, and so they became part of the projection screen. Sometimes I put them in the textures of the projection. So you'll see in some of the photos that it actually textures their bodies in ways that I think elevates the costuming. And so it was a different kind of way of dealing with the fact that the actors would be, and this one had, what did it have, a cast of 6. So we knew in that small space they would be chewing up a lot of the real estate of the projections, but I thought it worked really well.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up so we can just, again, walk down memory lane a little bit. And this was an interesting piece, just every time I work on one of Carson's pieces, I learn so much. Um, this was a piece about the idea of a parallel universe and following it through from the birth of a universe all the way through to its destruction and whatever might come afterwards, and really quite interesting. So here's a great example. This is one of the moments that I had the singers in all white. And so we just knew that when we did these scenes, this was about them being projection surface, right? This was not at all about saying, okay, how do I embrace whatever this actress is dealing with emotionally? I mean, you don't even see her face really. And it was really cool. I had never done that before.
Yeah, this was awesome to see the way that the light is wrapping around them. After the first one, you really embraced it here, and we see the colors and the way that the textures just wrap around them really nicely, and with their movements, that's what ties it together.
Absolutely. And boy, there were so many different worlds we were creating. I mean, this was a jump away into a futuristic kind of world. But, you know, here we were able to get to a more traditional place of putting enough light on the artists so that the projections were not reading a lot on their bodies. But we were still able to allow the projections to live well behind them. And I mean, she only has like 3 feet between her and the wall. There's not much space.
Yeah.
It was a real challenge. I should just go through the production team on this one as well. So again, we have Mary Kaufman conducting. Rosa Mercedes was the choreographer on all of this. Camilla Haith again was doing the costuming, lighting, Patrick Tennant, and we had prop design by Michael Miles. The cast in this, Daniel Buonaiuto, Natalie Avila, Sarai Rodriguez, Tim Stoddard, David Robinson, and Eric McConnell. And this was a wonderful review we got on this, and I love the fact that they said connoisseurs of experimental music theater, dance, and film should not miss this groundbreaking production. I did think it was groundbreaking, and it was a style of storytelling that I had not done before. You know, it certainly had this science fiction kind of element to it, but it was also a really human story. And that's my forte, you know, whenever we're in the world of just telling human story, that's when I feel really rock solid.
Yeah, I remember Carson showing us his drawings of the idea that were, I don't know how many years ago, but it was a long time ago. He had contextualized this on paper.
Back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, yeah. And it was quite amazing what he was able to envision back then, and how relevant it is today in terms of idea and storytelling.
Absolutely.
But it was really, really interesting.
This is a great example again about how we embraced what the projections were doing, and those like slashes of streaks going across their bodies almost feels like costuming, you know, and what it does to the face and all that. It really, I found it intriguing the way the projections were making me feel like it was both makeup on them, it was part of their clothing world. Even, you know, he's bare chested, but it felt almost like tribal paint across his body. It was really interesting and a wonderful opportunity. Like I said before, you know, who would have thought that being in such a tight space trying to do all this would be more liberating than it was frustrating, right?
Yeah, you know, that's that to that thought. I mean, a lot of times we have tendencies of wanting to have so many things prepped and everything just planned out for us in a stage. I would imagine that's not the ideal setting, but you just made it work in the sense we made that work with the confined space and given the limitations. And I think that that's where a lot of creative projects are born, when you have that desire to really make it happen despite of the conditions that they're in, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was beautiful. You know, every time we work on these things, I learned a lot. Also, just with how it's being applied and used in terms of the story. I learned a lot about story and storytelling in this theatrical experience is what I'm being specific to.
Yeah,
because
because
that's
in your work, you're dealing with story all the time, right?
I'm dealing with story, yes, in a it's just a different platform altogether. Like we'll do videos about a technology video that just it describes how processors are being made. As monotonous as that can sound, we try to find something exciting about it. So what is it exciting? And then we just come up with the purpose. You know, what's the purpose? Mankind wanting to do something greater than they did before, and to achieve new heights. So then we weave that into something that's in technology that could be very monotonous, and do something exciting. So this storytelling world is still similar, but the context and the way that you absorb it is so it really engulfs you. Like I think that's where I fell in love with theater, with working with you. It just that next layer of like immersion, if you will.
Yeah.
And like that's a drone that yeah,
And there's our friend the drone. Just so cool. I mean, I know that was tricky flying for, you had somebody from your team who was
yeah,
there amongst the audience flying this thing.
that
And I
crystal
gotta
meth.
say, it was a little scary because there was not much distance between that drone and the front row. And the idea that I would be part of a production where somebody got hit in the face with a drone was not one that I wanted to be part of.
No, that,
But he did a beautiful job. I mean,
yeah,
landing it through the aisle of the audience, and that was really cool.
that was that was Christian Machado, and he was scared of it initially, and I'm like, man, you got this. You're a good pilot, and also so people know this is a toy drone. The props cannot really. I mean, it can scratch you, but regardless, we made it made sure that it was not one of these like DJI, like these advanced drones that could potentially cut you. But yeah, that was awesome. I think that was a great add-in.
That was awesome. And you know, when we work with technology, and we'll talk more about that to where we're going with ultimately with the work we're doing now with Magic Leap. The trick with for me when we're working with technology is that it just elevates whatever story we're in, whatever way we're trying to bring across emotion and space and time and location to the audience. Technology should just elevate that. And so this
Right.
was kind of a way where we could have put really cool drones in 2 dimension in the projections themselves. But by having that physical drone in the space, it just kind of pulled everything right into your face to where you saw all the 3 dimensional structure in the 2 dimensional projections as more
Right.
3D at that point. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see what else we've got here real quick before we move on. Yeah, and then a freaky last scene. We had split the wall so the actors could come up behind the back wall and let their faces
Yes.
be
Yes.
part of this growth of after this universe had been destroyed, what came after. And in this interpretation, it was some kind of sea kind of algae that then took on human form as well, that could possibly be something that happens after our whole world gets destroyed by who
Yeah.
knows, right? Oy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was
It-
what an incredible piece though, take
yeah.
following a whole universe from inception until what comes after, like total destruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, very cool. So after that, I called you and I said, I have the opportunity to create a show in a hockey arena for um, the entire, I think it's an 11,000 seat hockey arena, but with what we had to block off to pull off the show, I think we were able to get about 7,000 people into the arena and it was packed, sold out. But so I said, you know, we got to figure out a way. I'm going to have, this was for the Grand Rapids Symphony who was behind the project, but it was a collaboration between the symphony, the Grand Rapids Ballet, Opera Grand Rapids, and Broadway Grand Rapids. And then we also had 500-piece marching band that would be coming through all the aisles. We had about 600 school kids who would be singing out in the seats of the arena. We had the Grand Rapids Symphony Chorus. We had the Grand Rapids Youth Symphony. We had, I mean, it just was, the Youth Ballet. It was just insane.
Yeah.
But I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we can create some kind of three-dimensional structure that we can projection map and let that help guide us through whatever this thread of storytelling is that we would like to do.
Right. Yeah, that was just listening to the amount of pieces that that comprise this event. It makes my head spin. I can only imagine what you had to do to really coordinate with everything, but yeah, there's a lot of elements. The piece that you're mentioning was also a challenge in itself, because now we're developing a physical structure, designing a physical structure, which they later use as their branding.
Yeah, right.
For the event. But it was yeah, we had a beautiful team. We had a great group of people with obviously with better budget on this one. And yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible piece.
Yeah, it was all the moving parts in that thing. It was quite immense. There were 1,200 performers, and we had 4 different stages to play on. And luckily, the production team, headed by Marshall Yoder and Diane Yoder, was just insane. I mean, they were just, there's no way we could have pulled that off without them.
They're amazing. Yeah, they're amazing too.
Really amazing, really talented. And let me just pull up, there's all kinds of little videos and all, but there was this one that, if you don't mind, I think it's from your website.
Oh, no worries, of course.
Yeah, but really, doing something in an arena is a different beast. Just the amount of time it takes to get from where we are at our production table to up to the stage. I mean, it takes me like 2 minutes to get there. So it's not like I'm in a theater. I can just hop up onto the stage. It was the whole process was really interesting. I'll share the screen here. So the event was called Live Arts, and let's just take a look at this real quick. I know the video is a little jerky there. One of the joys we're having in our whole world of having to Zoom every meeting and all of that is just sometimes the limitation of technology. My laptop's saying I'm tired.
No worries. Yeah,
that's kind of emblematic of what we have to deal with, because we're putting a lot of drain on processors and things like that when we're working. How did your world of equipment that you had to provide for what we were doing, did you have to upgrade just to handle what we were doing?
Yeah, I had to buy a system, a custom-made built computer that would be able to withstand just some of the load of the scenes that we're producing. And we needed to get a special case to be able to have it to travel. And we went and prepared for that solely just for that project. That computer system was able to handle what we were doing, but the queuing is not the biggest thing. as much as it is in terms of the hardware, as much as it is to actually create it. We had several artists involved. We had George Lega, Ronnie Cinco, Barbara Gutierrez, Andrew Lopez, Sergio, and also Brian Babinski in the production of that. So we had several people on the team, and everyone had a different language in terms of their design language, like what they do, like their specialty. And what was beautiful about the piece is that we did a multitude of designs that catered to the symphony, and each one had their own language of their art, and we would animate those. So the one that comes to mind is Barbara's, because she was able to get her iPad and draw and sketch these different beautiful paintings of a swan, and that turned into something else. And she was freely painting in her iPad, and we were able to grab that asset and project it on the sculpture that was designed by Andrew. So that working with different people is always a challenge, as you may that's your day, working with everyone, and a challenge in the sense of like just transmitting the information and making sure it gets accomplished, and then letting them grow within their respected areas, and embracing what they do. So it's like a little bit of give and take, and ultimately I think that the passion was all in there, that everyone just wanted to produce something beautiful and great. So it came out incredible because everyone just put in their 100% into that project. So it was just a great reaction, not only from our team, but the rest of the live arts team,
I think that that whole opportunity to do something like that brings so many different aspects of the arts community in a city like Grand Rapids together, and see what happens when you let all of these areas, these specializations in different arts kind of play together in one space. It was really powerful. And
Right.
I can tell you that I know the city of Grand Rapids was talking about it for quite a while afterwards. We made our impact, and but it probably had a bigger impact on me than we had on them. I think it was really special, and to see what the kids brought to it. There's just such an authenticity when kids sing or when they dance, and they're not so caught up in worried about what the world will think about what they're doing. They just do, and it was really quite special. I was really touched by it, as I know everybody was.
Yeah, no, definitely. No,
but what a change going from the little space with chamber opera to the hockey arena, huh?
Yeah, that was my biggest production, and nerve-wracking. At the same time, doing anything live is always it's always stressful. But
and I know, like at the last minute, we ended up getting a second projector to double up just to get richer intensity out of all of the projections. So we added in that second projector on top of it. It was something really special.
Yes, it was. I just remember one thing when I'm on the headset. You're with I think it was with was it Diane or no?
Yeah. I'm right next to Diane there.
Yeah, you're next to Diane, and I just remember that last song. I don't remember the name of it, but I'm sure you can recall. Like, and we had the explosions of the colors, and I just remembered that we're already at the end, and after that finished, it was just like we looked at each other, and we're like, we're done.
That was Carmina Burana, and and you just had all these incredible like bursting of these powders of color going on. They were so vibrant and so alive, which is how everybody felt at that point. I think everybody felt like they were bursting with that kind of energy. And then we had the pyrotechnics, so we had the explosions going off, right? We pretty much blew the roof off the place.
It was tuned up a little bit too much, but that was. It was amazing.
It was the kind of event where if you're going to go over the edge to too much, it's better to do that than to go too little, right?
Exactly. Just a better.
So from this enormous event in a hockey arena, we're now
Yeah.
going down to a very personal, individual kind of experience of a single user, whether we put them as an audience of 100 watching the piece or whether it's a single person experiencing it on their own, they will be in their own goggles. And so now we're talking about Magic Leap's mixed reality technology. And we will be really taking what is a beautiful expression musically and dramatically that composer Valerie Coleman has created in this piece called Wish, which deals with the horrors of the Middle Passage of the transatlantic slave trade. She Everything is already encapsulated in what she created, and when she performs it, it's just absolutely it blew my mind and it broke my heart and made me feel just such a huge range of emotions. But everything was already there in that piece. But now through Magic Leap mixed reality technology, I am now, and we are together, making a visualization of what that experience is. So it no longer only exists with the music and performance that Valerie does, but now I'm actually creating a visual world that will put the audience into to help them experience that in a much more heightened way.
Yeah. I think the Magic Leap. Um, so it's mixed reality. It's basically when you put on this headset, you can have 3D objects appear right in front of you, and yes, it is a standalone experience. But what's interesting is that it recognizes the space that you're in. It scans the area. Now we have elements that pop up right in front of you, like if they're not, what's not there, it literally will pop up. And now it's not playing with that medium. I've never explored in that direction before, so it's also a new thing for me. But I know I've worked with people that have done that experience. So it was interesting. Is like, okay, we're working together on this new, very personal piece, and we're trying to develop this language that will work through the Magic Leap. So it's an incredible journey, just because it's very new. I don't think anyone's been going about it in this direction, using it for theater or this performance way. But I know that it's something that will be in the near future. We know that Apple is already going into this direction. There's already a lot of press and news that they will be coming up with glasses, augmented reality, mixed reality glasses that will have elements pop up in front of you. So this is something that's going to happen. So it was a great opportunity to jump on it with you.
Yeah, and we actually have two Magic Leap projects that we're working on right now. We've got this project of Wish that we're doing with Valerie Coleman's work. And then we're also, I was a recipient of a Provost Research Award from the university. And so under that award, we are exploring how to utilize this technology in opera specifically. And so for that, the material we're going to be working on, well, we are working on, is Hansel and Gretel, and taking on that wonderful scene when they get lost in the woods and they pray and then they fall asleep, and there's this beautiful fantasy kind of dream sequence that happens after that, which I think is just a great opportunity to just look into how we can do really fantastical, wonderful animations and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious about the fact that when we have something like this to explore and play with, and I'll put quotations around that, that I have to treat it, and we have to treat it very differently when we're working on a piece like Wish that's dealing with something so profound as the slave trade. And then another opportunity where we've got this wonderful fairy tale story about these kids lost in the woods. And, we'll talk about it in a second, the way we're going to actually paint that scene out. They're just so different. And so at some point we can say, all right, this technology can be treated like a toy and play and have fun. And another time we have to approach it with great respect and think very carefully about never letting the novelty of the technology lighten the thematic material we're actually discussing and working towards elevating, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that Wish, what was great about when we started with it was that we had Alvaro help us with the development on it, and he created developer tools, a tool for the director, I should say, for you in this case, so that we have our animations. We built an animatic, is what we call it. It's just a moving storyboard, so that way we get a sense of the timing of everything that we're producing. That was built within, that was put into a, imagine you're holding a tablet in physical space, and that has your animatic, so you can actually scrub it through and see what are the moments in time where the changes of the music occur, so that way there's new scenes. And that actually happens in the Magic Leap. So it was a great jump start just to create a tool that we can later implement and use for Hansel and Gretel, along with all the other tools and learning in terms of the process, working with me directly with Alvaro, and then also working with you, so that you're able to see the results of it. And we're coming up with a workflow
That's right.
that makes sense. So I think this is a new thing for all of us. Again, it's like, it's uncharted territory for a lot of us, but what is amazing is how, despite of that, we're not afraid.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's scary, but because it's still unknown, but we know in our hearts that this is gonna elevate the next, it's gonna be the next thing that's gonna elevate this type of experience. So that's what I love about working together and bringing in new people that are equally as passionate to do something like that.
Yeah, I know whenever I'm in these projects with you, my feeling is I just want to go bold, and then we'll figure out where the wall is when we hit it. But I'd much rather do that than just live within the constraints of what I know already and what I think is possible. I'd much rather just say, I have no idea how this could be possible, but can we make this happen? I kind of like that conversation,
Yeah, of course. I mean, let's hit the wall until we figure it out. Yeah, I mean, I've done that a lot of times too. I mean, in my own world, but yeah, I think that's what makes things better. With the Hansel and Gretel project, I got a friend of mine excited about painting in 3D space. After I told you about the tilt brush, we spoke about tilt brush. Tilt brush is a tool that that you put on a VR headset, and you can literally paint in space. And we're seeing this happen more and more with live events where people are painting 3D canvases. While they're painting enclosed in their own world, they're projecting it in a bar, and then people can see what that artist is doing. So it's really interesting. Instead of seeing the traditional painting on a canvas, we're doing it virtually and projecting it out. So I have a friend of mine that he's now incredibly excited about jumping into the Hansel and Gretel project. I told him about the goggles, and he's like, look what the world that I created, and he sends me a video. I'm like, that's amazing. Keep practicing. He's an artist by heart. So if you have a good sensibility for art and design, you're going to be able to grab that, and at some point it's going to feel natural to you to get it and just kind of go crazy with it. So it's that we're using it to create assets that essentially could be real assets for the Hansel and Gretel project. And it looks like it's a fun thing to do, and it is. But you're essentially building, let's say we wanted to build specific trees, and these trees had faces in them or characters. Like the artist can literally grab his paintbrush in 3D space, rotate around, and then develop this single asset. And that asset could be later integrated into the Magic Leap. And you can later see it. Okay, here's my virtual space in, the area. I see where my boundaries are, and I know where I want my tree,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can essentially start to place things in that space. So it's very cool. It's a very cool process that we're about to embark on with that.
It's going to be, it continues to be a learning experience. We just, every next step of notes that we take on, and then we go look into the app and see what's it look like, what's it feel like. It presents new learning for us, and we have to kind of reevaluate technically where we're at and what are the new kind of problems maybe we created by going down whatever path we did. It's really cool. And I gotta say, I'm blown away. I just, I give these like artistic notes, and then seeing technically what it takes to, when you guys come back with the next version of things, I'm just blown away by the work that you all do. You and Alvaro Sanint on this have been incredible. And it's just the beginning. I mean, we've just started to find our comfort in what we're doing. And I can't wait until these are in a form that we can share it with people and let them experience what we're doing.
Yeah, man. No, for sure.
Well, that time is coming soon. We'll figure out when that will be. But in the meantime, we'll just keep plugging away. And I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to the university for the opportunities it gives me to do this kind of work with people like you. So I'm finding myself very grateful.
Awesome. Well, likewise here, man. Always. It's always a pleasure.
Good. Well, me too. Take care. Great to just reminisce with you a little bit. And we'll keep grinding away at these projects.
Yes, sir. All right, man.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Yep.